Alrighty, welcome back to another thrilling installment of Free Read Fridays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fragath, and we are reading some more from Heavy Time by C.J. Cherryh. Previously on. Um, so, turns out Cory, Dekker's partner on their vessel, um, is the daughter of a high-ranking muckety-muck in Marscorp. And it's her mother, and she is not especially thrilled that Cory is dead. She was given the runaround trying to find out why her daughter was missing slash dead, um, and blames Dekker 100% for her death because, quote, okay, I don't actually remember exactly what she said, something along the lines of he killed her to get the money because wealthy, very wealthy, high-ranking executive in Marscorp, and she is not happy. Meanwhile, though, at least it looks at the moment like Ben Pollard and Maury Bird are going to have access to Dekker's vessel as salvage, because Dekker is certainly in no fit state to pilot the thing. And right now, Sal Abujib and Meg, last name forgotten. I don't remember her last name offhand. Um, are gunning to basically drive the thing and crew it, and therefore get a cut of the profits that that vessel makes. And of course, this stands to benefit Ben and Bird because they will also benefit monetarily from any yield they get. At least this is the plan. Whether this remains so is a whole nother can of worms. This is probably going to be a short one. I'm a little frazzled and fried at the moment. Um, a long day yesterday. How long is chapter 9? Chapter 9 is really short. How long is chapter 10? Okay, no, that'll be fine for next week. Okay, I'll do 9, 10, 11 next, or 8, 9, 10 next week. Okay, very good. It'll just be one chapter today. Sorry, guys. You shouldn't complain. It means I'm not complaining because it means I have a easier schedule for a longer period of time for doing these. I don't have to keep coming up with new material. Yay! Um, I don't have to scramble to find something to read. So that's good. Alrighty. Let me just get a couple sips of water in and we'll get cracking. Chapter 7. If 8 was gray and automated, 6 was green paint and a few live service restaurants and shops, but the time still dragged. You worked out in gyms. You hit the shops till you had the stuff on the counters memorized. You skipped down to 3 deck for a while and maybe clear to 2 for an hour till your knees ached and your heart objected. The first few weeks after a run were idle time, mostly. You didn't feel like doing much for long stints. You'd think you had the energy and then you'd decide you didn't. You sat around, you talked, you filled your time with vid and card games, and when you found your legs, an occasional grudge match in the ball court or sitting through one of the company team games in the big gym on 3 deck was about it. But mostly you worked out till you were about to drop, if you had to wrap your knees in bandages and pop pills like there was no tomorrow. And that was what Bird did, because the younger set was chafing to get down to heavy time that counted, down in the neon lights and fast life of Hell Deck, down in the .9G on 2 that was as heavy as spacers lived. Specifically to the black hole. That was the accommodation they favored, and the hour Micah Rezzo called and said he had 2 rooms clear, adjacent, no less. They threw their stuff in the bags and they were gone. Checking in at the hole felt like coming home. Old acquaintances, a steady traffic of familiar faces. Mike, who owned the place and ran the bar out front, kept the noise level reasonable and didn't hold with fights, pocket knives, or illegal substances. Quiet place, all told. Hell Deck might have shrunk from its glory days. Worker barracks and company facilities had gnawed it down to a strip about a K&a-half long, give or take the fashionable tail end the corporates used. That was another 10 or 15 establishments. But you wouldn't find any corporate decor in the hole. No clericals having supper, not even factory labor docking for a beer. The hole was free-faller territory. Dock monkeys and loaders, tenders, pushers, free-runners, construction crew from the shipyard and the occasional shepherd. Not that other types didn't stray in, but they didn't stay. The ambient went just a bit cooler, heads turned, and the noise level fell. It went the other way when lost sheep turned up. "Hey, Bird!" Alvarez called out, and heads turned when they walked in. Guys made rude remarks and whistles as Meg sauntered up to the bar and said, "Hello, Mike." Mike said, accurately, "Vodka, bourbon, vodka and lime, gin and bubbly," and had them on the bar just about that fast. Home again, for sure. Close as it came. "How's it going?" Mike asked. "Bursky says you got a distress call out there. Pulled some guy in." "Yeah, young kid. Partner dead. Real shame." Alvarez said, "What's this with Trinidad hanging off the list? The cops impounding her?" God, the other thing Helldeck was good for was gossip. "Nothing nothing we did," Ben said, fast, "but Mama's got her procedures. You contact a ship from across the line." "Across the line?" Some parts of a story you saved for effect. They were worth drinks, maybe supper. Wait," Alvarez said. "Mahmoud and Lal are over at the Pacific. I'll phone them. Wait on that." "You got one grounded bird here," Bird had used to joke, when it came to getting about in .9G. Hard as null G was on the body, you got so frustrated with walking on Helldeck. It took so long to get anywhere, and the trans was always packed. Food and drink didn't have to be chased. That was the plus. But when you first got in, you always felt as if you'd forgotten your clothes. You got so used to the stim suit moving with you and fighting every stretch, you kept checking to make sure you were dressed. Air moved over your skin when you walked. And how did you spot a spacer in a fancy restaurant? Easy. He was the fool who kept shaking the liquid in his spoon just to watch it stay put, or who set something in midair and looked stupid when it didn't stay there. He was also, the poor sod, always in line at the bank, checking his balance to see if assay or mining operations had dropped anything into his account. Or, in this case, down at the security office to see if, please God, the technicalities had been cleared up and some damn desk pilot might just kindly sign the orders to get his ship out of port. No. And no. The 28th of July, for God's sake, and the cops hadn't finished their search. And when he decided to stop by the bank and check the balance to see if the last of the 6 deck bills had come in, damn it, the bank account showed a large deduct. So, the aforesaid spacer hiked the slow, long way to the claims office, and stood in line in this scrubby, poor office to find out the state of affairs with Trinidad's claims pending and its tags. Ben had gotten into his nice office worker suit and gone clear around the rim to say hello to friends in Assay who just might hurry up the analysis, and you'd sincerely hope it wouldn't run in reverse. 229 Tango, he told the clerk, who said, Trinidad, yeah? Bird and Pollard, right? Right. The clerk keyed up and shook his head. I hate to tell you this. Don't tell me we got an LOS. You don't want to tell me that. Yeah. You got a pen? I'll give you the number. I got my list, he said, and fished his card out of his pocket and stuck it in the reader on the counter. That's number T29890. Shit, he said, and bit his lip. On principle, he didn't cuss with friendly clerks. But it was the second best tag they had, a big rock for these days. Iron. And he had been careful with it. He raked his hand through his hair and said, Sorry, that one hurt, on principle. Maybe better news tomorrow. They do turn up again. Yeah, he said, thanks. So they'd lost a tag. It happened. You sampled a rock, you took a sample in and ran your on-site tests, and if you liked it and thought Mama would, you called and told her you had potential driver work here. You got your big bounty when your second, official assay report confirmed your work, and you got a certain monthly fee just for having it on the charts. But you didn't get paid percentage on the mineral content until some driver finally got around to chucking it back in bucket loads, until the shepherds got it in, and the refinery reported what it really had, which happened on the company's priorities, not yours. And if you had a loss of signal, that meant Mama had to do the bookkeeping on it, and Mama had to re-tag it, pick it up on a priority, or let it go until another pass. All that was shit work Mama didn't like to do, when a nice neat tag that stayed on was what you got for that bonus for, and back it came unless you personally could firm up those numbers and keep track of it. If it got perturbed out, as did happen, you could lose it altogether, or have to fight it in claims court. So, well, this one was too good to let slip or leave to chance. Maybe a little computer work could find it. There was a remote chance it could just be occulted for a while, something in the way that wasn't on the charts. A LOS could sometimes put recoveries onto another find, in which case you got that credit. It had happened in the long ago, but generally a rock just, in the well-known perversity of rocks, got to turning wrong, and managed to turn in some way that the strip transmitter was aimed to the 3% of the immediate universe Mama's ears didn't cover. Or the transmitter could have died. They didn't live forever, especially the junk they got nowadays. So it was a hike over to recoveries and pay a couple more C's out of the account for the technicians to pull up a file and figure probable position, and talk to it and listen with a little more care, first off, in the hope of getting contact, before they went to the other procedures. Meanwhile, the bank didn't pay interest on what Mama had taken out. That was why they didn't immediate withdrawals these days. Every damn penny they could gouge. Odd-shaped rock, he typed on the form, and invoked the data up out of Mama's storage. Photos. And mass reckoning. And the assay report on the pieces they'd knocked off it. The recoveries clerk took the dump, looked at it, and lifted an eyebrow. Thorough. Makes our job a lot easier. We might have a real chance of waking this baby, or getting a driver on it before it gets out of reach. Real nice piece, that. That made him feel better, at least. You kept the people in recoveries happy, and they maybe paid a little more attention to getting you found or a little more urgency to getting you picked up. Unlike the guys who took only one sample, and that from the only good spot on the rock. A lot of novice miners had gone bust that way. talk Mama into a whole lot of expensive tags on junk, just collect the bounties and puff up the bank account and buy fancier analysis gear, and a few took the real risk and outright falsified the samples. It paid off in a few instances, but the sloppy work that usually went along with that kind of operation sooner or later started showing up in reprimands and fines, and a crew got back to base some trip to find out their bank account had been holed while they were gone. Mama didn't ask you to write a check these days. Under the new rules, she just took it, and you could sue if you thought you'd been screwed, if you could afford to hire the company's own lawyers. And you'd never say that drivers ever cheated in reckoning the mass they'd thrown. And you'd never, ever say that a refinery would short their receipts. Driver captains and refinery bosses never, ever did things like that. But you did do real well to get a reputation for being meticulous, taking multiple samples, being clean with your records, making it so drivers and tenders knew your tags were worth going after, knowing your mass, photographing all the sides, including after the tag was on. Most of all, knowing the content. Rocks being their individual selves and damned near able to testify in court who their parents were. No skimmer liked to mess with his claims, no sir, because Morris Bird was real friendly. He was on hailing terms with most of Heldeck, and when he got a few under his belt, he told everybody far and wide how he kept accidents from befalling his claims, and how suspicious it was if it came in short. There had only been one or two uncharitable enough over the years to remark that sleeping with the two most likely to do the skimming couldn't hurt. But he had stood up for Meg and Sal, and so had no few others. It made him happier just thinking about it. Made him outright laugh, thinking how that had probably done more to reform Meg Cady than all the evangelicals and the Islamic reformeds who'd handed out their little cards on Heldeck. Sal, now, he thought. Reforming Sal was a whole different proposition. You got all kinds on Heldeck, except you didn't walk it in any business suit, not if you didn't want to get laughed out of the hole. So Ben shed it at the locker he kept on 3 deck, put on his casuals and his boots, after which it was safe to go home. Change of clothes, change of style. Ben Pollard went most anywhere he cared to go on R2, and nobody would find him out of place. But fact was, Heldeck was where he most liked being, down in the hammering noise and the neon lights. He'd been scared as any company clerk when he'd first laid eyes on it, at 14, even if his mama had belonged here. But even at that age, he'd known sure as sure that Ben Pollard was never going to have the pull to get out of the company's lower tiers. He'd learned how it really was. The ideal the company preached might be class blind, but funny thing, kids without money ended up like Marcy Hager in the middle tiers, where you had certain cheap perks, but you'd never get a dime of cash and you'd never get further. And aptitudes and institute grades had damned little to do with it. President Towney's son, for an example, was about as stupid an ass as had ever graduated from the Institute, and they put him in a vice presidency up in the methane recovery plant, while Ben Pollard, a shepherd's kid, got a stint at pilot training, at which he was indifferent, and geology, at which he excelled. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Wrong line. Let's take that sentence from the top. Things I like about CJ Cherryh. She uses all the punctuation. If there's a form of punctuation that can be used to separate sentence fragments, she is using it. And this is doing that. Unfortunately, makes it kind of hard to read aloud. Okay. President Towney's son, for example, was about as stupid an ass as had ever graduated from the Institute, and they put him in a vice presidency up in the methane recovery plant. While Ben Pollard, a shepherd's kid, got a stint at pilot training, at which he was indifferent, and geology, at which he was good, and a major in math, thank God. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reread that whole sentence, and I'm going to tell you all the punctuation as it pops up. President Towney's son, comma, for an example, comma, was about as stupid an ass as had ever graduated from the institute, hyphen, and they put him in a vice presidency up in the methane recovery plant, ellipsis. While Ben Pollard, comma, a shepherd's kid, comma, got a stint at pilot training, parentheses, at which he was indifferent, unparentheses, and geology, comma, at which he was good, semicolon, and a major at math, comma, thank God, period. I'm gonna. I did this last time. I'm probably gonna find like one example of it every stream because this book is filled with it, and I love it. Um, I realize it breaks the flow, and I'm sorry, but I think it's cool to know that there are authors who are willing to use every form of punctuation in the book. In the book. Ha! There's a multi-level pun. And a major in math, thank God. But he couldn't get into business administration, not, at least, tracked for the plum jobs. They went to relatives of company managers. They went to company career types who had paid their dues or whose parents had, or who tested high in, so he had heard, company conformity. Shit with that. He took a little jig step on his way back from the assay office, and on Helldeck nobody took exception to a little exuberance. If a guy was happy, that guy must have reason. In a society that lived on luck, you wanted to brush close to whoever looked to have it, because that guy might lead you to it. What he had was a card in his pocket that said they had a couple of nice pieces, and that money was going into the bank, dead certain. You tagged things, and you didn't know how long it was going to be till the driver got there, but what you had in your sling was money, and in this case, a good chunk of it. Yeah! Meg or Sal in? He asked Mike at the bar when he got to the hole. He knew where Bird probably was, where Bird had been this time of day for the last week. Mike said, "They aren't, but the cops were." He looked at Mike a moment. It was hard to change feet that fast. Cops? They weren't in uniform, but they had badges. Anything I should know? He sighed, said, because, hell, you needed the local witness on your side if it came to trouble. "All right, Mike. The guy we rescued, out in the belt, we got a claim in on the ship. He owned it. Sole survivor. The guy's crazy. God only knows what he said. Police are probably checking us out to be sure we're on the straight." Mike looked a shade friendlier at that, and interested. "Claim on the ship, is it?" He tapped his key on the bar. More of a long story, but that part's black-holed. You, we trust. Let me go check this out." He went back through and down the hall where the sleeping rooms were, opened up the room he had, at least on the books, with Bird. "Shit!" was his first reaction. Not as if they had much to disarrange, but thieves could have hit and been neater. 4 days to get their personals out of police hands, and here was everything they owned strewn over the sink, the lockers open, their laundry scattered on the bed, and a big bright red sticker on the mirror that said, "This area was accessed in search of contraband by ASTEX security acting with a warrant. Please check to be sure all your personal items are present and report any broken or missing articles or unsecured doors immediately by calling your ASTEX security public relations department at—" He pulled the sticker off the mirror. Paper thicker than tissue was worth its weight in gold. Literally. You could fold the thing and write important secret notes on the edges if you could find a pencil, which was equally frigging scarce. Shit. He opened the side door that led into Meg and Sal's room. It was technically a quad. Same mess, only more so. Meg and Sal had more clothes. Meg and Sal were going to kill them. That was one thought going through his head. The other was outrage, a sense of violation that left him short of breath and wanting to break something. What in hell were they looking for? Something off that ship? Data card? He had a sudden cold thought about the charts. But he had that data card in his pocket, where he always carried it. He felt his pocket to be sure. Damn. He headed out, locked the door, walked down the hall, and tried to collect himself for Mike, who asked, "Anything wrong?" "Not that I know. Be back in a bit." He kept going, to the nearest trans to get him up to 3 deck. He had this terrible cold feeling all the ride up, all the walk down to the gym and the lockers. His hands were shaking when he used his personal card to open the locker. He suddenly thought, everywhere I use this card, they can trace it. Same as in the Institute. There's nothing they can't get at. He got the door open. He felt of his suit pocket. The card with the charts was there. He'd been so excited about the assay report he'd forgotten to switch it back. But, God, where's its safe now? In the room they've already searched? Maybe they'd expect him to do that. And they might be looking for one kind of trouble. But if they found something illegal, damn. Dekker opened his eyes tentatively, hearing someone in the room. Realized it was a doctor leaning over him. The drugs had retreated to a distant haze. "About damn time," he said. The doctor moved his eyelid, used a light, frowning over him. The doctor said. Pran was his name. Dekker read it on the ID card he wore. "Dr. Pran, I don't want any more sedation. I want out of here. What did the police find out?" Pran stood back, put his penlight in his pocket. "I don't know. I suppose they're still investigating." "How long?" "How long what?" "How long have they been investigating?" "Time. Does that still bother you?" It still touched nerves. But he was able to shake his head and say, disloyal as it felt to say, "I know Cory's probably dead. Right now, I want to know why." Pran's face went strangely blank. Pran looked at the floor, never quite at him, and started entering something on his slate. "You haven't heard from the police," Dekker said. It was hard to talk. There was still enough of the drug in him that he could very easily shut his eyes and go under again, but he kept pushing to stay awake. Pran didn't answer him, and he persisted. "How long has it been?" "Your partner is dead. There's no probably. Denial is a normal phase of grieving, but the sooner you get beyond that—" "I don't know she's dead. You don't know. For all I know, that ship picked her up. I want to talk to the police. I want a phone." "Calm down. I want a phone, damn it! It's on the record. A rock hit you. A tank blew."
"There wasn't any rock."
"You said there was. Are you changing your story?"
"I'm not changing anything. There was a driver out there. It didn't answer our hails. It ran right over us."
"Denial," Pran said quietly. "Anger. Transference. I've talked to the investigators. There's no driver. There never was a driver near you. One was working. It's possible there was a high-V rock. A pebble."
"Pebble, hell! I want to talk to the police. I want to know what that driver captain says. I want a phone."
The doctor went to the door, leaned out and spoke to someone outside, and left.
"I want to talk to somebody from management!" he yelled at the empty doorway. "Damn it, I want to talk to somebody who knows what's going on out there!" but all that came through the doorway was a pair of orderlies with a hypo to give him. He swore when they laid hands on him and when they gave him the shot, and he swore all the while he was sliding back down again. He felt tears running on his face, and his throat was raw from screaming. He thought of Cory shaking her head and looking the way she did when something couldn't be fixed. "Can't do it, Deck." And he said to himself and to Cory, "Hell if not." Two pieces of news Ben had for Bird when he walked into the hole, and good as one was, the bad won. And good as one was, the bad won. Hands down. "We got an LOS on a big one," Bird muttered as he went down on his bed. He threw that out flat, because it was completely swallowed up in this. "Sure it was cops?" "They left a note, a sticker." Ben showed it to him, folded from his pocket. "It was worse than this. I straightened up some, folded Sal and Meg's stuff." "Got them too." "Got them too." "Damn." He shook his head. It was all he could think to say. "Maybe," Ben said, "maybe they're just checking us out. I mean, legally they can search anything they want. And we have this claim in." "Legally, I'm not sure they can," he said, tight-jawed. "But the complaints desk is hell and away from R2." Then he thought about Bugs, signed Ben to hush, got up and took him out and down the hall to a table in the bar. By that time he figured Ben knew why. Ben looked worried as he Whoops, sorry. Ben looked worried as he sat down. "Two beers," he said to Micah Rezzo, and brought them back and sat down. He said to Ben, "They could have bugged the place, but if we ask to move, they'll be asking why, and they'll get interested." "I don't know why they're on us in the first place," Ben said. "It's that damn Dekker, I know it is. No telling what story he's telling them."
"We don't know that."
"Well, it would be damn useful to know. I could talk to somebody in—" He laid a hand on Ben's arm.
"Don't try to fix this one. I don't care who you know. It's too dangerous."
"Dangerous hell! We haven't done anything but save that guy's neck." Ben really believed in some things, like the system and the rules he regularly flouted.
"You remember you asked me about Noory and his lot, and I said that wasn't that long ago. Police can do any damn thing they want to. They did then, they still can. Your company education tell you that?"
They're regulations they have to follow.
"Oh, that's fine. There's regulations they sometimes don't follow. Remember Noory? Wasn't anything they didn't search on these docks, and you didn't say, 'I got my rights.' The company has its easy times and it has its crackdowns, and both of us can remember when toilet paper didn't have stuff in it to break down, so you can't make press paper anymore. You gotta use those damn cards you stick into these damn readers that we don't know where the hell they connect to. I can remember when ships could kind of work in and out of the sectors, and you could link up and share a bottle. Now they'll slap a fine on you you'll never see the top of. I can remember when they didn't care about this stupid war with people clearing the hell gone away from here. That they say now can just come in here and blow us to hell, and once upon a time we didn't have the company bank taking LOSs out of your account if you paid for a search, not until recovery turned up an absolute no-can-do. I've seen a hell of a lot of change, friend. I've heard about how the company has to do this and the company has to do that, and if we organize and everybody stands together, the company's going to give in. Hell! We're not the shepherds. The company doesn't have to give in. The company can replace us. The company's aching to replace us. And if it wasn't for the charter that says they have to deal with independents on a fair and equitable basis, they'd have screwed us all right out of existence. They teach you that in company school?
There are still rules. They're still accountable to higher management.
Yeah, they're accountable. The only accounting that matters is the balance sheet. We shouldn't have filed on that ship, Ben. We shouldn't have done it.
You're not making sense. It's the company's rules. They set up the salvage rules. You're saying they're not going to follow them?
Ben, the rules aren't supposed to cost the company money. That's the rule behind the rules. I've had a bad feeling about this whole business from the beginning. You don't win big. You never win big.
If you don't take the breaks you have, you damn sure don't win anything.
You're all shiny, new, and bright polished. I was that a long time ago.
He took a mouthful of the beer and swallowed.
I remember when they started making this stuff, too. You don't want to see the vats this came from.
Yeah, well, maybe everything you remember was better. Maybe everything now is shit. Or maybe it was always like this.
We didn't always have the company on our necks. We didn't always have them gouging every penny they can get their hands on. We didn't always have a friggin' military shipyard next door making us a target. We haven't always had all this damn happy stuff on the vid all the time when we know nothing happy is going on back home, Ben.
It was too much to say, even out in the bar, where bugs weren't likely. It was too much even to think about. Ben looked confused. Here's home, Bird. This is home.
Yeah, he said, it's mine too. But sometimes I'd like to kick its ass.
Meg and Sal came in the door. They had to explain to them how it was. Sal said, "Sons of bitches," meaning, he hoped, the cops. But Meg and Sal were smarter than Ben in some ways. They shut right up and said a dinner would patch things. Funny, he thought then, that they had never even once thought that the cops could have been searching after something Meg and Sal had done, and them almost certainly skimmers, and just back from a run. But the company never minded skimming much, the way it never minded how Sal took money from guys. Sal just didn't do favors for free, unless she was your partner. And truth be known, she got a bit out of Ben, the way they'd just gotten their dinner paid for. Company brats understood each other. The gals didn't even look much upset, just kind of shrugged it off and shook their heads as if two guys who got into somebody else's trouble could expect police. Or maybe they were just trying to keep everybody level-headed. You never knew with women. They might be madder than hell, and thinking how they'd like to break certain guys' necks, but they'd think about it a while and figure they were owed for this, more than a couple of beers. So they said they'd go straighten up, and they left. Ben lingered a minute, finishing his beer, and then said he'd go check the bank and make sure the money got logged right, which was an excuse. God only knew where Ben was really going. Bird said, "Don't you try anything." Ben said, "Yeah," and left. Maybe he should have warned the gals about bugs. Probably they were chewing up him and Ben right now. But maybe it was better they did talk in the room, make whoever might be bugging the place think that they didn't suspect a thing. They knew about the ship, all right, but they didn't know what else there was to worry about. Like that driver sitting out there where the ship had come from. Driver chewing away at what miners found, extracting and sorting and sending bucket loads to old Jupiter, who slowed it down again so the shepherds could bring it in to be sheet and foam and such. Mama always assigned sectors according to the driver's work patterns, so you knew there was one somewhere by, but between you and the well, with its business end pointed the other way. Let's try that sentence again. That's kind of a toughie. Mama always assigned sectors according to the driver's work patterns, so you knew there was someone nearby. Whoops, so you knew there was one somewhere by. But between you and the well, with its business end pointed the other way. Pointed the other way. Blech. Anytime you thought about going near a driver's actual fire path, you had to think about how big it was and how small you were, and how what it threw came so fast you'd never know what hit you. Driver paths were the one item of information Mama gave out for 5 or so sectors away, not even regarding the line that divided R1 work zone from R2. Every firing of the drivers had to be logged and reported to Mama as to exact time. You couldn't move a driver without Mama's permission. You sure couldn't hide one. So Mama just forgot to put a driver on Dekker's charts? It had been on the ones Mama dumped into Trinidad, right where Dekker had given them the coordinates for the accident. Damn, you didn't want to have thoughts like that. Lot of pressure on Mama lately. A lot of crazy behaviors out of ASTEX's upper echelons, like mandatory overtime in the factories, like trying to revise the contract with the Shepherds, to let them install a few company-trained crew members on Shepherd ships. A fool could see where that was heading. None of the big shake-ups had ever made sense, but damn all anybody could do if the Earth Company got behind it. They could change the rules. They could change the laws if there was one in their way. The EC had so many senators in its pocket, and the EC was so many people's meal ticket in one way or another, especially with this ship construction boom, and there were so many blue skiers bone ignorant about space and politics, living down at the bottom of the mother well like his own brother did, writing him once a year about the wife and the kids, and 2 pages at Earth to Belt mail rates about how he was putting in green beans this spring. God, did people still think about things like that? Just sign this, they said, and shoved a slate under Dekker's hand. They had raised the bed up, propped him with pillows, but the trank was still thick and he could hardly focus. It was heavy G this time. It felt hard to breathe. "What is this?" he asked, because he hadn't gotten cooperation out of anybody in this place, and he didn't trust any of them. It might be a consent for them to go cutting on him, or giving him God knew what drug, and damned if he was going to sign it unread, in this place heavy as one deck. They said, the they who came and went sometimes, cops, doctors, orderlies, he wasn't clear enough to figure that at the moment. It's just so you can get out of here. You want to get out of here, don't you? Go away, he mumbled, sick at his stomach. Don't you want to leave? He had dropped the stylus. They put it back in his fingers. He tried to get a look at it then. It took a lot of work to make out the letters out of the general haze. But it said, affidavit. Legal stuff. He worked some more at it. Finally, he saw it was an accident report. Accident. Hell. He threw the thing. Maybe he broke it. It hit the wall and fell with a clatter like broken plastic. He thought it wouldn't do that upstairs. He said, I'm not signing anything without a lawyer. Hell of a mess they'd left. Meg was maddest about the jewelry. She sat there untangling earrings and swearing. "Want to say we're missing something. Serve the corpse right." And Sal, sorting through the stubs of makeup pencils, blunted every damn point. Corporate pigs. "We haven't done anything." It took some thinking, but that was the case. Meg unwound tiny chains and felt an upset at the pit of her stomach. Sons of bitches, why the hell they toss everything together? Sal came over and leaned on her fist on the bed. Signed, fast and sharp. Careful. Which didn't help the feeling in Meg's stomach at all. If they were bugged, and the way things were going, she'd believe it, they could make oh wow, okay. Let's try that. This is hard. If they were bugged, and the way things were going she'd believe it, they could make those bugs vid as well as audio. They didn't need this trouble. They wanted a chance at that ship, but they sure didn't need this trouble, and trouble for the guys was what it smelled like. They could move out. There were sleeperies besides the hole. They could kiss Ben and Bird off and go find another lease after all. But if that second ship did come Bird's way, then they'd want to cut their throats, was what. Bird and Ben were the best operation they had a chance with. No chance for her in the company. Not much for Sal, either. With a police record, you could work as a free runner, but you didn't get any favors and you didn't fly for the company. And if anything went wrong on deck, you were on. Whoops. And anything went wrong on the deck you were on, you were first on the cops' list. Just about time something went right for a change. There'd been enough bad breaks. Like the sector they'd just drawn, which got them a nice lot of ice and rock, in which Mama wasn't keenly interested. No, thank you. That was the kind of allotments lease crews got lately. There were thin spots in the belt. They were passing through one, and the ship owners took the good ones if they had to break health and safety regs to get out again. Well, hell, you hung on. You stuck it. You skimmed when you had to, and you did your damnedest. Meg Cady swore one thing. She wasn't going to die broke, and she wasn't going to be spooked by any company cop throwing her stuff around. Her hands got real steady with the little chains. She felt her mouth take on this little smile. Familiar territory. Amen. Cops on Sol are higher class, she said to Sal, right cheerfully. These shiz don't take any courses in neat, do they? Sloppy, Sal said. Severely sloppy. Salvatore sank into his chair, shoved a stack of somebody's problems aside, and took his inhaler from the desk drawer and breathed deeply of the vapors. Enough to set himself at some distance. He took a deeper breath. The drug hit his lungs and his bloodstream with an expanding rush, reached his nerves and told him to take it easy. He hated scenes. Hated them. Hated young fools handing security more problems and doctors who invoked privilege. Most of all, he hated finding out that there was more to a case than administration had been telling him. The phone beeped. He took another deep breath, let it go. His secretary would get it, and he hoped to hell. Mr. Salvatore, his secretary said via the intercom. Mr. Payne. Third call from PI that day. This was not one Salvatore wanted, and he knew what Payne had heard. God, he was not ready for this. He punched in, said, Mr. Payne, sir. I'm told we have a problem. Whoops, I'm told we have a problem, the young voice on his phone said. Salvatore's office didn't have vidphones. He was glad not to have. Payne was junior, a bright young man in the executive, VP in charge of public information and PR, directly under Creighton, who was directly under Towney himself, and there was absolutely no doubt somebody else had been chewing on his tail. Recently, Salvatore decided. So Payne passed the grief down his chain of command to security. That damned fool is going to keep on till we have a corporate liability. This isn't going to help anyone, Salvatore. I understand that. Look, this is coming from upper levels. You understand that? I do understand that, yes. This is getting to be a damned mess, is what it's getting to be. The girl's mother's after that kid, and the whole company's on its ear. We've got contracts to meet. We've got schedules. We need that release. We need this case settled. I'm advising him to sign it, Mr. Payne. Salvatore took a deep breath. of unadulterated office air this time. God, who was Payne talking to?
We're working on it. There's a possibility, the way I see it.
He took another head-clearing breath and took a chance with Payne.
There's an indication the kids might not have been where their logs said they were. It could have been a mistake. It could have been deliberate. I think they might have been skimming.
There was a long silence on the other end. God, he hoped he'd not made a major mistake in saying that. What we have, Payne's voice said, finally, quietly, is a minor incident taking far too much company time.
Yes, sir.
I can't be more plain than that. We don't need an independent involved in the courts, especially a kid with camera appeal. I've got the data on my desk. I'll send it over to you. There was no driver. We have the log. There was no such entry. I'll tell you what happened out there, Captain. These two kids were up to no good, very likely skimming, probably scared as hell and taking chances with a rock way too large for their kind of equipment. Dekker either screwed up and had an accident that killed his partner, or there was a mechanical failure. Take your pick of the safety violations on that ship. Maybe we should be prosecuting on negligence and probably on skimming, but I can give you the official word from Legal Affairs. We're not prosecuting. The kid's been through enough hell. There's no likelihood that he's going to be competent to testify, or that he won't complicate things by raising extraneous issues in a trial. And we're not going to have this drag on and on in a lawsuit, Salazar's or his. There's people on this station would love that. You understand me, Captain?
I do, sir.
So get this damn mess cleared up. You hear me? I want that release. I'm sending you the accident report. You understand me? We have elements here perfectly willing to use somebody like Dekker. I don't want this blown out of proportion. I want it stopped. He thought about the recorder on his desk. His finger hesitated over the button. He thought better of that move. But he wanted to make Payne say it.
Stop the investigation?
Put out the fire, Mr. Salvatore. We have a damage control situation here. I want this resolved. I want this problem neutralized. Hear me?
Yes, sir.
Salvatore said, which was pointless because Payne had hung up. He punched in a number, the outer office. He said to his aide,
Get me Wills on the phone. Now!
Damn it, if the kids were skimming, charge them. You skim from the company, you get busted. Period. But the girl's mother insisted not. The girl's mother insisted her daughter wouldn't involve herself in a shady operation. Beyond a doubt, Dekker had murdered her daughter for the bank account. Good point, except it was one doggedly determined killer who'd wrecked his ship and sent himself off the mental edge for an alibi. He'd seen miners do crazy things. He'd investigated one case that still gave him nightmares, but nobody had held Corazon Salazar here at gunpoint, and nobody had any indication Dekker was after money. By what his investigation had turned up, the girl had quit college, taken money from a trust fund, paid Dekker's way out here, and laid down everything she had for an outdated ship and an outfitting. A mortal wonder they'd gotten back alive the first time. And if anybody'd been kidnapped out here, it sounded more like Dekker, who was just damned lucky to have been found. Physics had been in charge of that ship the second those tanks ruptured. Damned sure the kid hadn't. And God and the computers knew why it had stayed in the ecliptic, but it didn't sound like good planning to him. Hell, Deck didn't handle money, one of the interviewees had said, in the investigation on R1. He just flew the ship, always tinkering around with it. Social? Yeah, he'd be with Cory, but he'd be doing vid games or something. He used to win bar tabs that way. Real easy going. Sometimes you'd get a little rise out of him, showing off, that sort of thing, but he always struck me as downright shy. The games were his outlet. He'd be off in the corner in the middle of a crowd. Cory'd be at the table talking physics and rocks. Yeah, they were a real odd pair, different. But it was like Cory did the headwork and Deck was all real time. Yeah, Deck had a temper, but so did Cory. You never pushed her.
Yeah, they slept together, but they weren't exclusive. Minded their own business. Didn't get real close to anybody. People tried to take advantage of them being kids. They'd stand their ground. Cory more than Deck, actually. She'd draw the line and he'd back her up. Not a big guy. Older guys used to try to hit on him. He'd stand for about so much, that was all. They'd find it out. Honest? I don't know. They weren't in anything crooked I ever heard.
There was a driver out there. He had the up-to-date charts. Company records had it arriving March 24 and the accident as March 12. But the ship's logs were tied up in BM regulations and the mag storage had been dumped. A panel-by-panel search of the two ships hadn't turned up any illicit storage, and Wills hadn't found any data cards in the miners' rooms. Which didn't mean no data cards had gotten off the ship. Hell of a case for customs to wave past. Administration could come blazing in demanding answers on that. But no one had told him early on there was any question about the charts, and he consequently hadn't told Wills. And now the evidence was God knew where, or if it still existed. You tried to do some justice in this job. There was a kid in hospital in more trouble than he was able to understand, up against a woman with enough money to see him hauled back to Saul, and into courts where money, the military, dissatisfied contractors, and various labor and anti-war organizations were going to blow it up into an issue with a capital I. Salvatore understood what they were asking him to do. Found himself thinking how they didn't demote you down, just sideways, into some limbo like an advisory board no one listened to, out of the corporate track altogether. He had a wife, a daughter in school, in administrative science, a daughter who looked to her father for the contacts that would make all the difference. Jilly was bright. She was so damned bright. And how did he tell her, or Mariko, this nowhere kid in hospital was worth Jilly's chances? He took another deep breath from the inhaler, thought, hell, Dekker's been no angel. He's got a police record on Saul, juvenile stuff. Mother bailed him out. Nothing he's done that we can prove. But kids don't know what they're doing. If the kid can't use good sense, use it for him. He felt the slight giddiness the inhaler caused. Don't overdo it, his doctor said, and rationed the inhalers. His doctor didn't have William Payne on his back. Or a wife and daughter whose lives a recalcitrant kid could ruin. If Dekker had used his head, he wouldn't be where he was. Salvatore knew kids. Kids never made mistakes. Kids were too smart to make mistakes. But this kid had made a mistake. He was in far over his head. His partner was dead. A lot of survivor guilt was wound around that. Give the kid an out. That was the answer. No kid was going to understand politics and labor unions and defense budgets. Dekker had nothing to win that way and nothing but grief if he tried. Give him an excuse. Offer him a way not to be accountable for his mistakes. Before his mouth put him in real trouble.
The Department of Statistics says that the rise in birth rates this year reflects the rising number of females in the population, which will only continue to rise. Commenting on this, a spokesman for James R. Reynolds Hospital said today that the company should place contraceptives on the general benefits list. The average number of hours worked has fallen 10% during the last 5 years, while the standard of living has continued to rise.
Screw that, Meg said. That's what they don't want you to do, Sal said. That's what they don't want you to do, Sal said.
Population increase of 15% during the last decade.
Then why in hell are they doing overtime?
President Towney declares that R2 is facing a population crisis and urges all women to consider carefully their personal economic situation. Statistics prove that women who postpone childbearing until after age 30 will on average enjoy a 25% higher standard of living. President Towney reminds all workers, whether male or female, that those who desire to advance in the company should be careful.
Think they'll advance us if we're careful? Meg snorted. Maybe we should go tell them we're waiting, Sal said. You got the vid blasting away in the gym. You couldn't escape it. They were sitting there sweating, waiting the breath to do the next round with the machines, and Townie was blithering again. On the other hand, Meg looked at her nails. It was a hobby, growing nails in heavy time. They all got clipped when you went to serious work. Or they broke off, eventually, in the dry cold. Mostly, she didn't want to look up, because there was this Sheilavec just come in since... What? Because there was this Sheilavec just come in that she sincerely didn't want the notice of. This gym, Sal wanted. And she'd said to Sal she'd as soon... Wow. And she'd said to Sal she'd as soon do something a little less exclusive. Sal. Yeah, I see him. Meg looked from under her brows, tried to look like furniture, heart thumping. Tall guy, hair shaved up. Nordic or something. His name was Mitch. He was a shepherd tech chief, and he was a friend of Sal's. Not of hers. Most definitely not of hers. Mitch had seen them and done this little take, just half a heartbeat, and gone on over to the weights. I think I'd better evaporate, she said to Sal. No, sit. It was fairly well shepherd territory they were in, this little gym near the end of Heldeck. It was a gym Sal had always had rights in. She didn't. And this Mitch never had approved of their partnership. Mildly put. Sal got up and went and talked with him. Meg tried not to be so forward as to read lips, but she could read Sal, and it wasn't thoroughly happy. Then Sal put her arm around Mitch and steered back toward her. Meg, Mitch said. It was her cussed nature that she wouldn't stand up. She strangled a towel, tilted her head to get a look at him, against the lights, and gave him a cool smile. Bonjour, Mitch. Que pasa? He did rab the way the shepherds did, fash. He meant the same in his way. He didn't speak the speech, damned sure. Didn't do the deeds. He said, Katie, how are you doing? Oh, fair. That's good. That's good, Katie. No noise, no fusses. You're a friend of a friend of a friend, you understand. That's gotten you this far. I must say I've been impressed. You're a son of a bitch, Mitchell. Nice not seeing you lately. Mitch smiled. Good-looking son of a bitch. And having the authority to toss her out of here, and out of Sal's life. Don't screw up, Katie. You're on tolerance. You've run the line damned well so far. I've told Sal there's a real chance on you. Take it and screw with it. I'm not on your tolerance. Mitch's brows went up. Then he got this down his nose look, shrugged and walked away. Meg rubbed the bridge of her nose, not wanting to look at Sal. She didn't know why she'd done that. Honestly didn't know why. It wasn't outstanding good sense. Sorry, Abajib. Yeah, well. Sal dropped down to her heels, arms on knees. He asked, he got. He knew he was pushing. He's all right. Yeah, I know how all right he is. Some bitch. Little G God. Shit all he's done for you. Silence from Sal a moment. She'd gone too far with that one. She'd gone too far with that one. Finally, Sal said, They've heard about the upset in our room. Mitch wants us out. Says lease and go. Get out. They're worried. Hell if, Meg said. We're close, damn it. What's he bloody care? Sal's dark face was all frown. We do got a warning. Yeah, well, Abajib. Severe warning. Wants me out of here too, let's be honest. You get a lease, I'll stay here and hold us a spot in the ship. Didn't say that. I'm not saying split, damn it. I'm saying I stay here and hold us a spot and you keep your friends happy. He's advising both of us. She took a tag end of the towel, mopped her forehead, an excuse to gather her composure. We're that close. Damn it, Sal, you don't get that many breaks. There won't be another. Sal didn't say anything for a moment. Meg sat there thinking, Sal's break's with them. Her real break is with them if she toes the line. Damn sons of bitches. Couldn't help her. Couldn't take her in. Toss a kid out like that. Make her turn spirals till she's proved herself. Hell if, Mitchell. Sal said, finally, Come on, out of here. On the walk, out in the noise and the traffic of the deck, I don't think there's a bug there. Mitch wouldn't talk else. But there's a word out, Meg. I got to confess, I maybe said too much.
About what?
Ben got data off that they got when. Whoa, that's a sentence. Okay, let's try that again. Ben got data off that they got when they were after that ship. He's been working with it, and he doesn't give a damn what it is to anybody else. It's his charts, and he's not going to see it dumped. He said that. Meg took a long breath.
Mad. That's what you told Mitch?
Mitch came to me. They wanted a copy.
Ben'd kill you.
Sal kept her voice low, beneath the noise and the echoes. Yeah, I know it, but they won't make the same use of it. Just the information, just those chart numbers. You got to fund me, Katie. Mitch has got my card right now. Access to our locker for the next while.
Shit, Jim.
On the other hand,
This thing's got too many hands as is.
Shepherds have got their eyes on us after this. Don't know what they can do with those charts, but they're thinking there's something just damn Ni-Culturny about Bird's ship being tied up, about this kid getting killed out there, about the cops looking through the stuff.
You told them this. You went to him.
Sal ducked her head. I was worried. Worried about whether we shouldn't cast off and get clear of this, if you want the truth. You ask yourself why the cops would turn our rooms upside down. Ask yourself if there's any damn thing we've been involved in out of the ordinary, except we got two friends trying to file on a ship.
Jim.
Yeah, I know. I was just asking a question. I said I thought it could be data they're looking for.
Jim, do you seriously mind telling me in the hereafter when you're gonna pull a lift like this?
Yeah, well, I figured you'd worry.
I'd have killed you.
Ben, no. No.
So how long before he finds out? God, Jim, that June Fee is no fool. He could have bugged the damn card.
Sal pursed her lips. Did.
Then he does know?
Neg, of course not. He and I both came through the Institute. All right, and that is all I'm going to be able to do for today. I'm sorry, like that entire last segment is brutal. There's a lot that happens there. I don't know what Niculturni means. Um, I mean, it obviously means based on context something very funny. I don't know the language origin. It might be Niculturni. I don't know. Kulturni. So the language they speak is referred to often as Rab, as in rabble, and it's kind of it's a language patois. It's a pastiche. It's a bunch of language. Like you'll hear a bunch of French in there. You'll hear some Russian. There's a few other bits in there, so it's kind of a cultural mixing pot, which the belt is, and that's kind of where a lot of the James Cory Expanse novels get a lot of their reference. It takes notes. It takes notes from this. I'd actually have to check the publishing date of the first of those novels. Let me do that real quick. Wikipedia, why not? The Expanse novel series. Where was the first one? 2011. So this does predate it by a full 20 years, give or take. So, and I know, did the last one come out already? Yes, it came out, or at least book 9.
came out this past year, right at the end of November. I do not have them all. Wow, they even have the audiobook listing here. I should probably check those out. And I think novel 9 was supposed to be the last one, unless there's another one after that. And I don't know where they're up to in the TV series. Dum. Yeah. So yeah, James S.A. Cory definitely took some notes from Heavy Time. There's a couple book things that are kind of I consider to be sort of overlap conceptually. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress is one of them, um, in the sense that basically people getting shipped up to Earth and being kind of dispossessed. And in the case of Moon is a Harsh Mistress, it's the Moon is a penal colony, but you can kind of extend culturally a lot of the ideas out to that. Um, what is the other one? I cannot remember its name offhand or the author. It might have been Ben Bova. Don't quote me on that. There's some other belter fiction, I guess, life in the asteroid belt that's relevant. I consider C.J. Cherryh's to be kind of a bit more, in terms of a direct parallel. It feels a bit more direct, except the setting is very, 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 very different. It is a very different setting. Um, but yeah, if you have interest in this sort of thing, definitely worth checking out. The Expanse is pretty good. I know the first couple seasons of the series were very impressive. I was very pleased with how those turned out. The book series is also pretty good. But yeah, hope people had fun. I do this every week on Free Read Fridays, where I read short stories and indeed entire novels aloud. You're probably watching this listening to this, whatever, archived on the YouTube. I do it live. These are all live broadcasts at about noon Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. So feel free to check those out. Check me out live. Um, I also do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Mondays stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. Right now we're doing a run through of Remote Control Dandy, an old PS1 game that is a predecessor to the later PS2 title, Robot Alchemic Drive. Um, Big stumpy robots piloted by remote control. Very, very nitty gritty controls. You control pretty much every function. It's actually very hard. It's a hard game. And I also have a Warframe Wednesday stream where I do Warframe for a couple hours because, attract the wider audience. But this is my favorite stream. I do have favorites. Sorry to people who like my other stuff. This is my favorite stream. It's great. It's awesome. I like reading books aloud. So definitely, feel free to check out my backlog there. It is more or less up to date. I do have to get this added to the right playlists, but if you're listening to this now, I've probably already done that. But I am current now as of right now this broadcast. Alrighty, I gotta run. Thanks for tuning in. If you tuned in, if you're tuning in after the fact, thank you. Do what you gotta do, and hope you enjoyed. Thanks. Bye. Today was a rough day. Was a slow day for me, so I apologize. Not my best reading, but them's the breaks. Alrighty. Have a good one. See you all later. Stay warm. Um, Stay sane. Staying sane is hard now. But stay good. Alrighty. Stay